Summit, India's premier platform for deliberating the discourse around sustainability and climate change. It's my privilege to host you all on behalf of WSDS and TERI family. My name is Manvi Singh. I'm a research associate at TERI and will be emceeing today's session on understanding sustainability dimension of Bio-CNG in India. This thematic track is a special one as we will unveil the report titled Comprehensive Environmental and Social Sustainability Assessment of Bio-CNG as a Vehicular Fuel in India, marking the accumulation of TERI's effort to evaluate Bio-CNG's potential as a green energy source in transportation and agriculture. It's truly a privilege to host such a distinguished line of speakers today. Please join me in welcoming them with a round of applause as they take the stage. We have here with us Mr. Manish Shah, Chairman, National Dairy Development Board. Please, sir, please take your seat. Mr. Kenichiro Toyofuku, Director, Maruti Suzuki India. Sir, please. Mr. Kishore Kumar, General Manager, Marketing, Compressed Biogas, Gas Authority of India Limited. So he'll be just coming, but still we can have a round of applause for him. Yeah. Dr. Veena Joshi, Energy and Environmental Expert, Independent Consultant. Please, ma'am. Yeah. We have with us Professor Pratham Arora, Department of Renewable Energy, IIT Roorkee. Thank you, sir. We have with us Shri Mahant Ram Mangal Das ji, Head Shri Radhakrishna Mandir, Gaushala. He might be joining us shortly. There's one announcement that I want to make. As our Director General, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, is currently attending some last minute matters, she'll be joining us directly for the report launch. I just want to tell something about the report that we are going to launch. So the report showcases Bio-CNG's benefit in reducing GHG emissions, managing waste, and providing accessible mobility solutions in India. This thematic track aims to bring together stakeholders from government, industry, and civil society to discuss Bio-CNG's impact on promoting circularity in the automotive sector and sustainable agriculture. Through policy support and collaboration, we advocate for Bio-CNG, highlighting its benefits for customers, suppliers, and rural community. Without further ado, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Shovik Bhattacharya, Associate Director, TERI, to deliver the welcome address for this session. Over to you, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Good morning. On behalf of TERI and WSDS, I welcome you all to the thematic track in understanding sustainability dimensions of Bio-CNG as a sustainable fuel for the automotive sector in India. And this year's WSDS themed around sustainable development leadership and people-centric transition is appropriately themed in terms of the thematic topic that we would be discussing today at this particular session, largely because of the three dimensions of sustainability that we are all aware about: economic sustainability, economic feasibility, social equity and progress, as well as environmental sustainability. Now, when we look at Bio-CNG as a sustainable fuel, this three core pillars of sustainability is very much rooted in this particular source of energy, which we are talking about towards supporting India's as well as other countries' energy transition. Largely because, one, it is an indigenous resource which can be effectively utilized and creating employment and livelihood options for the local communities. Secondly, because of the significant potential of emission of methane, which has higher global warming potential compared to other CO2 generating resources. So we would be able to not only mitigate it, but effectively utilize it for productive energy generation. And thirdly, when we are talking about the economic dimension of biogas, this being an indigenous resource, it can be generated at a much lower cost, which would aid towards supporting cost-effective mobility, particularly in the rural settings. This has been very much a point of deliberations and discussions during India's G20 presidency last year, wherein the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, in one of the areas on circularity, uh, asked, in fact, TERI to develop a paper on circular bioeconomy. And while in the traditional circularity has been around biotic resources, this actually will have a long-term implication how we are able to productively utilize some of the waste biotic resources in supporting economic development. Another aspect which I feel is very relevant, and I believe in today's discourse and deliberations we would be touching upon it, is the entire new policy framework which the government has come out with is on the green credit. So when we talk about green credit, it's going beyond the traditional carbon-based resources, wherein a market mechanism works, wherein the entities who are having a kind of a cap on the overall GHG emission are allowed to trade the reductions that are achieved because of various mitigation efforts. Obviously, that's very important, and it's an established market, as we know, in many parts of the world. But the real innovation in the entire transition had been why not leverage that particular market potential to bring in this concept in creating markets for other sustainable products. And the green credit program, which was again a very relevant one in the Indian context towards achieving many of the sustainable development goals, was announced during the India's G20 presidency, including the last COP, which took place in December at Dubai. And also the government's announcement of setting up and taking the leadership in terms of coming up with a global biofuel alliance. So last year actually was very well poised in terms of creating the right momentum, not only at the national level, but also at the international level, to take this entire initiative of using indigenously available resources to support India's energy transition while promoting economic development. We were also very fortunate enough to actually undertake this exercise, possibly the first of its kind in India, wherein we have not only looked at the environmental sustainability, but also the social sustainability. And I leave it the economic sustainability to the speakers to share about their experience, because many of them are actually working at the field level. So, the way we would like to go ahead is, given the fact that we have established a very strong, in fact, negative environmental impact linked to use of biogas in the country, we have also moved a step ahead to see that what would be the real benefits that possibly a typical individual in a remote location would be able to achieve, particularly through savings on the very expensive fuels that they are consuming on a daily basis. And this actually took a kind of a very strenuous exercise to kind of go validate some of the data that we have found from primary surveys to see the extent of benefits and how ultimately it translates to achievement of many of the sustainable development goals which we would be presenting. So, without further adding, I would leave it to my colleague to present and take a deeper dive on some of the macro and the micro findings that we have from the exercise. So before ending again, I would like to thank you all for making yourself convenient to come and be at this very important and timely thematic session on Bio-CNG, as well as role of understanding its role of promoting environmental and social sustainability in the Indian context. We do have Dr. Dhawan's initially Dr. Dhawan's inaugural address, but as you can understand, WSDS being one of the flagship events of TERI, so she has also been like kind of roped in few of our other thematic tracks. I was told that there is already a plenary session which is going on and it's going to end maybe another 5 minutes. So what we will do is that we will have our initial remarks just before the panel discussion, and followed by the panel discussion. So before that, we would have a comprehensive presentation of the report, followed by the release of the report, moving on to the panel discussion. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward for a very productive and interactive session over the next 1.5 hours. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Thank you, everyone. 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 T
While we wait for Dr. Dhawan, I request Mr. Naina Kaushik, Research Associate and Area Convener at TERI, to guide us through the presentation of the report. Yeah, okay. Which is the presentation? Good morning, everyone. I'm Pranana Kaushik, and I will be going through the findings of the presentation of our report, Comprehensive Environmental and Social Sustainability Assessment of Bio-CNG as a Vehicular Fuel in India. So firstly, as we all know, methane is the second largest GHG greenhouse gas contributor to the world after carbon dioxide, and currently methane comprises of 19% of the total anthropogenic GHG emissions globally. And India's methane emissions have risen by 30% since the 1990s, and currently India is the second largest methane emitter in the world. So one of the options that India has is Bio-CNG to directly tackle or directly reduce methane emissions in the country, is using Bio-CNG in different sectors, but our study was about how we can think about usage of Bio-CNG in the transportation sector. So Bio-CNG as a vehicular fuel has a potential to mitigate methane emissions and aid India in many ways, like providing cheap and reliable and eco-friendly transportation, and also increasing the connectivity. So making kind of reducing the disparity that rural and urban India might have in matters of transportation. And then why, well, out of many options, many energy options, renewable energy options, our focus has been Bio-CNG, or why this activity has interested us, because Bio-CNG is a very relevant option for the Indian conditions, considering that the feedstocks for Bio-CNG are very easily available in India, particularly rural Indian villages, considering India has the highest livestock population and also the highest net zone area in the world. And it is a waste to energy solution. It gives co-benefits of waste management. It can, I mean, if we use those feedstock for Bio-CNG production, then it can serve as an additional income for farmers, meet energy transition goals, meet climate goals, etc., that the country has already set. So the objective of our study were threefold. First was an environmental sustainability assessment to find out the most suitable feedstock for Bio-CNG production. Then we did a comparative environmental assessment where we compared four types of internal combustion engine fuels and electric vehicles. So those four fuels were diesel, petrol, CNG, and Bio-CNG. These four vehicles and then electric vehicles. It was a complete well-to-wheel assessment. And then also a social sustainability benefit assessment of using Bio-CNG as a vehicular fuel in rural area. And we tried to connect it with SDGs. So the approach and methodology for this exercise was first started with a literature-based survey where we went through numerous literatures to identify calorific value of different feedstock and feedstock to gas conversion ratios of these feedstocks to understand the upstream methane release potential of these feedstocks. Then we did the upstream methane release potential through via two methodologies. First was that we actually calculated how much feedstock would be required to produce an equivalent amount of Bio-CNG and the slurry that comes out of the plant if we use that slurry as an organic fertilizer and replaced with chemical fertilizer. So how much savings is happening from that also. So there were these two ways through which we both of these parts are part of the upstream methane avoidance. And then in the well-to-wheel analysis, we have taken the upstream avoidance of the other fuels of internal combustion engine as well as EVs from an LCA methodology, EcoInvent database, while our existing study has already given us the results for the Bio-CNG part. And the rest of the use phase end of life has also been taken from our LCA methodology, SEMA Pro version 9.3.0.3.
And the social sustainability assessment also included a literature review initially. And then we moved, we also did a little bit of primary survey in Gujarat. And then also through numerous telephonic interviews of people who had actually shifted to CNG vehicles, who were originally probably driving petrol diesel vehicles but has shifted. So we have done numerous telephonic interviews with those customers and those people, and then we came to the what is their perception and are they kind of noticing any cost savings. So those kind of telephonic interviews were done. So directly coming to the results, so this is the emissions avoided from production of bio-CNG from these four types of feedstocks. You will see there's a very wide gap between these feedstocks. So municipal solid waste, if you're using municipal solid waste as a feedstock, then on production of 1 ton bio-CNG from a municipal solid waste, the emissions avoided is 40,926, while it's just 6.3 kgs for bagasse. Now, why this huge variation is because it comes in the next slide. I'll give you an explanation. And in the annexure slides, I'll also kind of maybe run through of what the detailed calculation has been. It was a huge calculation, so I didn't put it in the main slides. So this is the why these wide variation comes in different feedstock is because so there are two main factors that will kind of determine what is the upstream methane reduction potential. So that's calorific value and gas feedstock to gas conversion ratio. So for MSW, you can see that the calorific value is low and the feedstock to gas conversion ratio is also very low when MSW is the feedstock. That's why a very large amount of feedstock is required to produce 1 ton of bio-CNG, due to which the methane avoidance potential of that huge MSW quantity becomes very high. When it comes to bagasse, it's 20,000 kilojoules per kg. The calorific value is very high for bagasse, due to which a very small amount of bagasse is required to produce, I mean, is very small amount of bagasse would be enough to produce equivalent amount of bio-CNG, due to which the methane reduction potential of that small quantity of feedstock is not that high. So from a production of bio-CNG perspective, feedstock like cow dung, MSW are more suitable. And in the Indian context, cow dung even more, because again, it's readily available. Municipal solid waste in India is kind of a mixed organic inorganic. So we did the later comparison, later part of the study using cow dung as our baseline in terms of feedstock. Then we directly come to the results of the well to wheel analysis. So here you can see that, so like I said, we had four types of fuel for IC engines and comparing it with electric vehicles. For internal combustion engine cars running with bio-CNG, on running 1 kilometer, a bio-CNG car can actually avoid 1,141 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent. This entirely comes from the methane that is avoided in upstream part of, that is the bio-CNG production part. Now, the upstream vehicle, upstream part of the study, like I already said, is coming out of our own study, while the upstream emissions of petrol, diesel, CNG, and electric vehicles as in the electricity production part in India. So India's grid emission factors, etc., is all the data is taken from an LCA database. And this is because it's a well to wheel analysis. Along with upstream, we have also use phase. For this study, we have considered bio-CNG use phase as 0 because it's a green fuel, and though it has actually emissions like CNG vehicle, but because that carbon is getting captured in the current environment only. So it's a short carbon cycle versus a long carbon cycle. In case of CNG, where we don't consider it to be 0, for bio-CNG, we considered it to be 0. This graph will give you a more detailed breakdown of the results. But again, this is not for a per kilometer. This is, we have considered 1,60,000 kilometers to be the entire lifetime of the bio-CNG of any vehicle. And this 1,60,000 kilometers is taken because last year only TERI did a study where we kind of did another well to wheel comparison, comparative analysis, where we had taken so various car manuals that we went through at that point of time gave 1,60,000 kilometers as the lifetime of the vehicle. So that was what the lifetime is considered, and that was equally applied to all 5 categories of vehicles. Then now coming to the social benefit part of Bio-CNG. So the social benefit assessment had three primary objectives. First was understanding the consumer perception, and second was capturing social benefit arising from transition of from existing other petrol vehicles to CNG vehicles in rural Gujarat, and then understanding the link of affordable mobility to sustainable development goals. The methodology, again, in the social benefit was a little bit of literature review, secondary data analysis, also field survey. Like I said, that we did a few field surveys in rural Gujarat, and then primary telephonic interviews that was taken. The two assumptions that involved in this study is that because right now there are not too many Bio-CNG vehicles running in rural Gujarat, so we assume that the perception of people towards Bio-CNG would be same as that it is towards CNG as of now. And the assumption has, the next assumption has been that when Bio-CNG comes, like penetrates widely, the cost of Bio-CNG would be either equal to or less than CNG. Then we found that based on people's perception, we found that the affordable mobility or I mean, as of now, the cost savings that they were incurring were not so tangible because it was not coming in a lump sum amount, and they couldn't exactly point out where they were spending it. So our questions were something like, do you think you are allocating that saving to your health expenditure, your children's education? So they were not able to realize it because it was not a huge lump sum amount, but they did realize the cost savings, and they were saying it was going in their daily expenses. And, using a little of secondary literature, we found that it has direct and indirect linkages to targets of almost 10 sustainable development goals. So these are the graphical results out of the perceptual response analysis. So so I think we did telephonic conversation with 30 people and 30 respondents, and out of that there were 15 who had petrol diesel originally, and then they shifted to CNG. There were around 13 people who have had CNG vehicles. Now here again I want to remind you that CNG, we are using CNG here as a proxy to Bio-CNG because there are not so many Bio-CNG vehicles as of yet. So there were 13 people who had CNG vehicles for more than 2 years and who were kind of in the position to tell us that yes, they were realizing some cost savings, because people who had very new CNG vehicles wouldn't have realized it. So the third graph shows that they were saying that cost savings was their primary motivation of switching to CNG, because environmental concern as of now was not their concern and not too aware of it. And the fourth graph says that, like I said, they were mostly allocating their cost savings to daily expenses. Again, a little bit of how we did build two cases during our social benefit assessment. So we took two cases, assuming that a distance traveled per day was 15 kilometers and 30 kilometers, and a total of 6,56,409. That was the size of the fleet of vehicles in rural Gujarat. And we did this calculation, a futuristic calculation, that if this entire fleet is to switch to CNG or Bio-CNG in the future, what would be the cost savings? And in these two cases, the cost saving comes to be 9.67 billion and 19.33 billion Indian rupees. Moving forward, why this study? I mean, we did it in the first place, and we think it's relevant in the future, is that transition to green energy, which is India's goal and which is a global goal. So that one is fulfilled. Over and above monetary savings, affordable transition. So on a personal level, people are benefiting. The usage of byproducts, there's no dearth of feedstocks for Bio-CNG in India. So again, like I said, waste management solution, dual purposes, climate change mitigation and environmental sustainability, cheap and reliable transportation, and most importantly, connectivity to rural areas. And then framework. So this, we believe that this report can also help us to include Bio-CNG or innovative energy solutions in the green credits framework that the government is coming up. Thank you for your attention. And this is the annexure. I think ma'am has come, so we can go ahead with the panel. But once the report is released, you will all have a copy. You can probably, I know there's a lot of information and it went very quickly. So, I mean, if you have any questions, maybe we can kind of go through it later. So these are the calculations. Thank you.
Thank you, Trinena, for this wonderful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that Dr. Dhawan is here with us. So I request all the researchers who have contributed to the report, as well as our esteemed delegates and Dr. Dhawan to please gather together for the unveiling of the report. Thank you all. Our esteemed Director General, Dr. Vibhadavan Ma'am, will preside as the moderator for this engaging discussion. I kindly request Dr. Dhawan Ma'am to please guide us through the session proceeding. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Here. When we talk of Bio-CNG, and maybe since I'm a biology student, I always feel that one of the important solution is come from the biological route when we are looking at climate change. The problem is when we are talking of climate change, it's largely that there are more emissions than what the earth can take it. Now, what God has given us plants who quietly fixes carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen. They don't ask us much. And if we look at agriculture, the development of agriculture, of course, we started because there were not too much of farm mechanization, and therefore it was ease of collecting grains, and we have therefore gone for shorter straw. Now, shorter straw essentially also means that it fixes less of carbon dioxide. But with farm mechanization, perhaps one can relook at the engineering of crops as well. Why can't we have crops which fixes more of carbon dioxide? They have much taller straws because with mechanization, we can collect the seeds wherever, whatever height they are. Unlike, of course, not to say that I don't say that solar or others have potential, definitely, because ultimately it is all energy on this planet comes from the sun. So we can fix solar as well, but somewhere over there it is that you have to have solar panels, which again demands for rare elements, which again demands for to us that develop a strategy how you are going to treat the waste which will be generated from those solar panels. So once they live their life, how are you going to take care of? In case of biomass, it is the natural factories which God has given, the plants, so they fix carbon dioxide. And what we are wasting today, because crop, usually we are talking of crop residue being simply burnt in the field. But if we put it in biogas plants, if you produce biogas out of it, what you are left with is the slurry, which again will improve the soil organic content. So it's a win-win situation because you are trying to, I mean, it's like right from the start, you are fixing more of carbon dioxide. Then you are using whatever is the leftover after you have harvested the crop of interest, the grains of interest to you. And then you subject them They produce gas for you. They give you slurry, which again can be used in agriculture and for next crop. So it's a complete cycle in itself. CNG, acceptance of CNG in the past, of course, that has largely happened, and which was also projected just now, that most of the users of CNG, they're not so much worried about what is happening to the environment. They're more worried about how it directly affects their pocket. And therefore, there is a direct benefit on day one when you shift to CNG. Now, Bio-CNG becomes all the more special. Why people are migrating from rural India to the cities? They are coming here basically for livelihoods. They are coming here that they don't have many opportunities. So if you have opportunity to create energy in decentralized manner at the rural level, there are going to be ample opportunities. Like you can set up cool chambers, you can process your food, you can get into cottage industries, and so on. So, like when we talk of sustainability, it becomes a perfect model for sustainability at a village level. So that's what I would look forward to. Of course, discussions will go much beyond what I have projected just now, but I just wanted to put some of my views before we start. So, of course, we have an excellent panel, very diverse panel, right from Chairman, National Dairy Development Board, and we have Director from Maruti Suzuki, Gail, Veena Joshi, our former colleague and independent consultant from IIT Roorkee, and also from Gaushala, Shri Ramakrishna Mandir Gaushala. So it's a very diverse view. So let's listen to them, and I'll get started with Mr. Manish Shah, Chairman, National Dairy Development Board.
Thank you, Madam. As our name suggests, we are from the dairy background, and the importance of dairy is in terms of the livestock, which we have seen how the livestock contributes to the methane. Just to give some perspective on the dairy, so we are the largest milk producer in the world. And when we talk this in the international forums that we are the largest milk producer, so they immediately react, so what, you also have the largest number of animals. And that puts us, somehow on the back foot because of the methane emission and the livestock, how it contributes. So this was, I think, perhaps one of the important reason why we initiated this sustainability framework, considering how we can capture the methane, which is a lot now going in the environment unproductively and also causing damage to the environment. So we started with a decentralized model. We get 2 cubic meter biogas plant at the farmer's backyard because we have a large number of farmers attached with the cooperative network in the rural areas. We're working almost in 2 lakh villages with 2 crore farmers as members who are supplying milk to the cooperative network. And we started supplying a small biogas plant to the farmers. Because the university was supported by MNRE, and we also had its own scheme. Tata Trust got I'm sorry. So Tata Trust also joined our journey, and then we noticed that the methane which is captured in the small biogas plant is used productively by the farmers for the cooking. So with 2 animals, it will be sufficient for a family of 5 to 6 persons in the family to satisfy the complete cooking needs, including the hot water and other energy requirement. So we started propagating this model. The results level, as Madam told, we honestly as the organic manure. So we converted the solid fraction into the phosphate-rich organic manure, and the liquids again, which is very nutritive in all the micronutrients, was used for producing various liquid organic manures as per the fertilizer control order. And the initiative helped us a lot because it was a win-win from all the angles. What we realized that you have to put additional money in the hands of farmers. Only by saying that we are avoiding the utilization, we cannot encourage farmers to actually be and help our initiative. So we then started forming collectives. So like we have the cooperatives for collecting milk, we started cooperative of all the women beneficiaries what we had in forming a cooperative, and they were buying slurry, resultant slurry from the biogas plant, converting into manures, and that cooperative was involved in production of manure also and selling the manure also. So this is how our decentralized model started. Then we realized that considering the large number of farmers, about 2 crore in our network, and maybe another 6, 8, 7 crores more in the country, which are not as members of the cooperative, we should have a quick method to cover all of them. And then we decided to go for decentralized model. So we set up 100 metric ton per day dunk Bio-CNG plant. It's 4,000 cubic meter digester in Varanasi. There we started taking 100 metric ton of dung. So large number of farmers were covered at a centralized location. We started paying for the dung. Again, biogas was produced, which was used in the dairy plant for the energy requirement. We can also generate the electricity if required. And again, the organic manure model about there. So in terms of economic sustainability, we found both the models are sustainable. Even for the centralized one, we could save 40 to 50 paise per liter of processing cost by replacing the light diesel oil, which was used earlier in the boiler. And then our journey started with Suzuki, and we started working on the further value addition for the biogas. So we have 150 metric ton nano plant, 2,000 cubic meter in Banaskantha, where the biogas which is produced is compressed. So it's a compressed biogas, and it is used for the vehicle mobility. And in that journey, NDDB has started actually formed a new subsidiary, NDDB Limited, which is completely working on this biogas and manure initiative of NDDB. And I'm happy to share that with our collaboration with Suzuki. Suzuki has now shown interest to form a joint venture. So our subsidiary will be now joint venture between Suzuki and NDDB. And we propose to set up more and more compressed Bio-CNG plants in the country because of our rural reach and the expertise which Suzuki bring it to us. And we will try to address some of the rural mobility issues which we have seen in the report through setting up of the Bio-CNG plants and using it for the vehicle mobility. And I think this initiative, which is providing additional income to farmers and also helping us to reduce the methane emission, will be a great contribution going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And in fact, NDDB, it has always been a leader. So whether it was in terms of bringing milk or mother dairy stores, and now so importantly that how do you gather everyone so that nothing goes waste. So because the entire success depends on how good one is in collecting the raw material, because it becomes a raw material. I won't call it, it's something generated as a raw material, but then it is biogas. And in the past also biogas plants in many areas they failed because community biogas plants, they were difficult to work because who is going to be the beneficiary? It's not, shouldn't be the stockist, it should be the one who has contributed whatever proportion of the young they have done it. And of course, there were other problems which some of them still exist, and one is trying to find solutions in terms of different materials which are available in different parts of different seasons. So the temperatures which many times are still putting challenge before us. So we'll now move to Mr. Toyo Fuko, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's this from Maruti Suzuki India Limited, because ultimately our cars, like if Bio-CNG is available, the cars should also run effectively. They shouldn't put any problem. So let's hear from you, sir. What is it? What are we in terms of the technology, and how sure you are about the success part of it? Yes.
Thank you, Madam. And this is Vehicular Suzuki. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for everything headed by Dr. Riva Madam, and also Dr. Charya-san, and Ivan Rao-san. So I really appreciate your activities and the massive work and the skills show for the almost all industry in India what we should do in the rest of the years and the years to achieve the sustainability. So now globally, most of the oil development companies is focusing on electric vehicle production to achieve the sustainability. But in India, situation is totally different. So therefore, as a global Suzuki, we are focusing on totally in the sustainability. First one, of course, this is the environmental sustainability, the carbon how to contribute to climate change. So simultaneously, in India, still, thousands of kinds of fuel is available in Nigeria. So how to integrate that? This one was shown slightly integrable how to integrate. So from this viewpoint, how to achieve the carbon neutrality, how to achieve the climate change, and how to contribute to global development. I think biogas come to be the ultimate solution how to achieve the carbon neutrality, the global development simultaneously. And this is so this development is governed by the group and the very organization by business in over the area. So, and I appreciate Dr. Shasan, Chairman of now this is the collaboration between auto sector and the dairy sector. This one will solve all the issue of sustainability related to issue in India. These two different sectors can create the very good creative effect for future. So now I think the only automobile sector cannot solve all the issue, but together with NBDB and together with dairy sector, we could solve the many issue and we can achieve the sustainability. So then let me explain more details and more concrete case. And now at the first, I would like to explain all the audience. Now, what is most important one? Now, many CNG vehicles being available on the road in India, especially in Delhi and Gujarat. This CNG vehicle, we can use the biogas as a fuel. This point, I think that many people don't know about this one, even now. Now, the basic composition of the CNG and the biogas is exactly same. This is the more than 90% of methane. Biogas composition is methane and the CNG composition is methane. So that's why we can use the same vehicle, CNG vehicle for CNG as well as the biogas. This is the very, very unique and important point to understand this story. So then as a Maruti Suzuki, in the last year, we could sell around 2 million vehicles in India. So out of this, roughly the 27% of our vehicle is CNG vehicle. And now this CNG vehicle ratio is increasing day by day. Now in all over the India, around 5,300 CNG stand is available. But now thanks to Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, this number of the CNG stand is increasing to 17,000 CNG stand in 2030. So that's why we are expecting the increase of the ratio of CNG vehicle in future. So for example, in Delhi and Pune and Gujarat, such area already developed the CNG stand. In this area, our sales of CNG vehicle is roughly 40%. So that for in 2030, we are expecting the ratio of the CNG vehicle is 40% in India. Same vehicle, we can use the biogas as a fuel. Then, according to the TERI report, 1 kilometer running of the vehicle by the petroleum vehicle, it is 190 grams of CO2 generated. So compared to this, CNG vehicle will generate the 147 grams of CO2. It is a huge reduction happen. It is according to the CNG. But if we can use the biogas as a fuel, this is minus. This is the huge. But this actual figure in India is very, very important for auto industries. We can clearly understand circularity in India. Biogas is very important. So this is the environment-related aspect. So next, I would like to explain how to contribute the rural development as the automobile sector. Now I think the Minesha-san and Dr. Viva-san already explained biogas production itself can contribute the rural development because currently many of crude oil, many of the gas we are importing from other countries. Then after develop the many numbers of biogas plant in India, I think that we can replace the energy and the oil and the gas from the import one to domestic one. Especially this energy can manufactured in rural area. This one will contribute a lot to enhance the economic development in rural area. And simultaneously as the automobile sector. Now what is important is the fuel cost is very important to provide the affordable mobility in India. Now roughly speaking, compared to petrol and the gas means the same price, CNG and the biogas is almost all the same price. It is 40% of difference of the fuel cost compared to the petrol and the gas, biogas. Unfortunately, now CNG stand is mainly set up in the city and the urban area. Now currently rural people and the village people cannot access to the CNG and the gas. But the rural people and the village people require the affordable mobility. So that's why if we could set up the biogas plant in rural area, and we can provide the biogas as a fuel, the low cost of fuel for the rural area. So only after this, rural people can access to the affordable fuel. This means we can provide the affordable mobility for rural area. Of course, now in rural area and the village people can access to the data and the internet through the mobile phone and the smartphone. Next, I think rural people and the village people require the affordable mobility. This one will create the big impact for rural development. So that's why biogas could be the practical and a very important solution for future to achieve the climate change and the rural development simultaneously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the figures which you have indicated, in a way, I'm asking myself why we haven't thought of it earlier and why we are not pursuing it with full force. Because really speaking, as a country, and very rightly mentioned, because it is that you have so many animals, perhaps equivalent to the number of humans, and they all generate methane, and we really don't want to talk about that sensitive subject. But then it's really a gold mine. So why not we meet our energy demands, which is possible, and it can be done in a decentralized way. And it's carbon negative, so it's actually going to meet our goals in the near future. So thank you so much for bringing that on the table. And now I'll come to Mr. Kishore Kumar. He is General Manager at GAIL. GAIL, as you all know, it is the leading gas-based OMC and superheading many CBG projects in the country. So, Mr. Kumar, I'll basically like to ask you your experience, including the opportunities, challenges, and what are the plans for the future? Are you planning to expand in this particular area?
Hello. Respected Chairman and DG TERI, Bibha Dhawan Madam, distinguished panelists present over here, scholars and industry members present in this August gathering. A very good afternoon to all of you. I am Kishore Kumar, General Manager, GAIL India Limited, looking after business development and marketing aspects related to CBG. Here I would like to present the perspective of GAIL as in gas marketer and also as a industry member who is doing who has plans and already contributing in a significant way to the development of compressed biogas ecosystem. Let me first start with the background how we came into picture, how this Bio-CNG thing came into existence and how it was promoted by the government through policy interventions. First of all, it started with SATAT. SATAT is a scheme. SATAT stands for Sustainable Alternative to Affordable Transportation. This scheme or this initiative was launched by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas in October 2018. And the objective of this scheme was to promote Bio-CNG as a fuel, as an alternative to CNG. Compressed natural gas is already an established fuel in the market. We are already, a lot of vehicles are already running on compressed natural gas. It's an established fuel as a green and environment-friendly fuel, which contributes significantly towards a reduction in vehicular population, vehicular pollution, and it's an environment-friendly fuel. Plus, as already has been deliberated, that this also leads to a lot of cost savings for the people who are running their vehicles, not only the private vehicles, but also the public transport vehicles. In fact, CNG thing was promoted by the government pursuant to Supreme Court order, after which this Indraprasth Gas Limited and Mahanagar Gas Limited, these two big companies, these are the biggest companies in India who are marketing CNG and piped natural gas. They are city gas entities. In fact, they are our associates of GAIL India Limited. And most of the buses running in Mumbai and in Delhi, they are running on compressed natural gas. So this is a well-established thing that compressed natural gas is the thing which should be promoted and which should be utilized as a transport fuel. Now the biogas part. Biogas basically, if you see the composition, it has around 50 to 60% of methane. The main component, if you see chemical composition, the energy comes from methane part, CH4. In biogas, it is around 50 to 60%. So industry members, scientists, technologists, everybody thought, why not use it as an alternative towards alternative of this CNG, because whatever gas we are consuming in this country, around 50% of the gas we are importing from the foreign countries, we are importing in form of LNG. around 50%. And 50% comes from the local, I mean, domestic production, ONGC, OIL, and some other JV companies also. So 50% we are purchasing from the from outside, and that is again subject to the vagaries of market condition, market volatility. You must be reading in the newspaper LNG prices. Sometimes it is $5, $10. It goes up to $50 also in times of political uncertainty or due to other reasons, supply constraints, and there could be a number of either industry-related problems or geopolitical problems. So government and as an industry member always tries to find ways to reduce the import dependence. So why not, why shouldn't we like promote the domestic production and diversify our fuel basket or energy basket through development of our own resources. So here biogas comes into picture. We have got abundant source of biomass in the country, like in form of municipal solid waste, agricultural residue, agricultural waste, and animal waste, you name it, and it's there. But only thing is the harnessing part or how you utilize it. So how it started. Now the technical part. CNG or natural gas is more than 90%. If you see the composition, more than 90% is natural gas. CH4 and methane. CH4, methane, and ethane, propane, and other higher hydrocarbons are also present, which contribute to the energy content of the fuel. But in case of raw biogas, which are produced after processing of the biomass, which comes out of the digester or the process, that is around 50% of CH4. Remaining part is carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc., and all those things. So if you have to bring it at par with the natural gas, then you have to purify it. And it started. So government came out with the policy that first of all, the technical aspects were formulated in terms of what is Bio-CNG, in terms of BIS standards. It could be very well used as a in replacement of compressed natural gas. So as composition wise, it would be very close to CNG. And for vehicle also, and already our friend from Suzuki, he has also explained in details like how it is very close, and already vehicles are running. So this would be as good as your CNG. And we have got abundant potential. Potential wise, if you see, we have got 62 TPA potential of total biogas potential, like harnessed from all the sources. If all the sources are utilized, so 62 TPA natural gas can be biogas, which is in turn would be very much close to natural gas, can be harnessed. To Satyat scheme, government basically the objective of this scheme was actually government asked all the OGMCs. We are the companies which are working under the administrative control of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, GAIL, Indian Oil, HPCL, BPCL, Indraprasth Gas. So 5 companies were entrusted with the task of supporting entrepreneur who would be setting up or investing in biogas plants. So our mandate was to just give them assurance that you produce the biogas, rather we should say compressed biogas. It revolves around compressed biogas. We are not talking about biogas, we are talking about compressed biogas, which is a purified or Bio-CNG, purified form of natural gas, which is very close to CNG. That means that biogas would be produced, it will pass through the purification process. All harmful or toxic or unwarranted or undesirable chemical components would be stripped or like removed, and then the purest form would be compressed, and after compression it becomes CNG, Bio-CNG, and it would be supplied at retail outlet which you see in the cities or wherever you find you get your vehicles refilled. So we were entrusted with the task of supporting these entrepreneurs. A mechanism was put in place wherein we came out with expression of interest, wherein all entrepreneurs, interested parties were asked to plan their projects and apply to all companies like us, all these 5 companies basically, 3 OMCs and 2 OGM, 2 gas companies, GAIL India Limited and this thing. So they applied, and after they were selected based on certain criteria, our task was to give them assurance of procurement at remunerative prices, good prices. And how we would utilize the gas? We would take the gas at our retail outlets, would set up retail outlets and supply this as a Bio-CNG or compressed biogas, CBG, which would be for all practical purposes CNG. The government target was to support 5,000 plants, 5,000 CVG plants, having aggregate capacity of producing 15 MMTP of natural gas, which was, and in fact, if you see the background, government has multiple objectives behind promoting this particular scheme. Like, it will diversify our fuel basket, energy basket. We are importing a lot of gas from outside, so it will give us domestic sources. Since okay, ma'am.
Please continue. Yeah.
Okay, since it can be produced from various kinds of biomass like parali, for example, agricultural residue, it can tackle the problem of air pollution, the problem of rural other sustainable goals which comes with it, pollution part, solid management part. If the plant is based on municipal solid waste, so it will solve the problem of solid waste management. Because if it is not processed and biomethane is not produced, then it is released. The methane gas is produced and it is released into the atmosphere, which is around 20 to 21 times more harmful than CO2, methane gas. So if this is sustainability part comes into picture, that 20 times reduction of its GHG emission potential is reduced if you capture it and harness it and use it as a fuel. So total 50 MMTPA was planned, and the plan progressed well. Around 52 or 53 plants are already operational. They have proved their significance that it is doable, and plants are producing. And the objective of all these companies like us was to give them assurance and procure gas from them. So we are procuring gas from them. If you look at GAIL through its JV companies, GAIL is the largest city gas player in the company through its associates like JV companies. Indraprasth Gas, Mahanagar Gas, and we have set up many joint venture companies with oil marketing companies in Kanpur, Lucknow, and all those cities. Later on, other entities or other players also came into picture, and government has a lot of thirst and impetus to promote the city's CGD infrastructure in the country, through which you supply not only the CNG but also the piped natural gas, PNG, CNG, both. Okay. And there is you must be aware, there is a regulator called PNGRB, which is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, which is the regulator for midstream and downstream oil and gas companies. So they regulate how it can be utilized, how the infrastructure has to be put up, bidding part, tariff part, and all those aspects are happening through PNGRB. So already around 98% of the population is covered through 295 geographical areas, and around 90% of the geographical area of the country is also. So this is being utilized through city gas companies, CNG part, city gas companies. So GAIL is basically doing three things. First, as a implementer of Satat scheme, we are supporting CBG producers. We are off-taking gas, like other companies which are also doing. Secondly, there is another scheme where GAIL plays a very big and significant role. That scheme is called CBG CGD synchronization scheme. That happens pursuant to the government mandate. And how it came into picture, since CGD companies have to supply gas and the gas has to be supplied by GAIL.
Mr. Kumar, I'll have to, because we have other panelists as well, if you can wrap it up. Yeah.
I'll wrap up.
There is good work, so but maybe we'll share during the lunch time.
Just give me 2-3 minutes. So because this is very important, where GAIL is doing a lot of job. We are supplying gas two CGD companies, and we are basically kind of entering into an arrangement with city gas companies and producers, and we are aggregating the gas CBG part, because here we are talking about Bio-CNG. Bio-CNG is a significant part of that. So we are supplying to CGD companies, we are procuring from them, at the same time we are supplying to them as an aggregator. And third role we are also playing, we have also plans to set up our own plants. In Ranchi we are already setting up, and other plants also in due course of time we have plans to set up as a direct investor, as a direct producer. That's captures what we are doing.
Thank you so much. And really speaking, it's excellent that you're looking into entire thing of setting up of infrastructure, and I mean, if we really have to scale it up, it has to be with your help. So thank you so much. I'll also like to extend my welcome to Shri Mahant Ram Mangal Das ji. He, as I mentioned earlier, he is from Shri Radha Krishna Mandir Goshala. So that is one of the largest Goshala in Delhi, and they are actually looking forward to or the setting up of Bio-CNG plant over there. So it would be good to hear from him a little later. So I'll now come to Dr. Veena Joshi, an old colleague of mine, and who is working in the field of sustainable energy and environment. Now, Veena, I'd like to ask you, how do you perceive CBG as a game changer in promoting environmental sustainability, especially in rural areas? And what, according to you, are the opportunities that India perhaps can leverage on?
Thank you, Iba. Thank you for challenging me to speak on this panel. Here, Shomik. Yesterday he came to me and he said, ma'am, you have to come and speak. I said, I'm retired for 10 years. I don't have the detailed knowledge. But listening to the fellow panelists and Vibha, your question on how does all this big picture fit into rural sustainability and rural opportunities. I want to go back early years when National Biogas Development Program was part of 20-point program of Government of India as a cooking fuel. Early days of TERI, there was a division called Rural Energy Research and Extension, which took it upon itself to set up biogas plants in rural areas. Engineers designed, extension workers built. We collaborated in the villages in rural areas and built the plants and ran them as cooking gas plants. Now that cooking gas space is now taken over by LPG scheme in the country. My submission to all the experts and panelists who are looking at Bio-CNG as a transportation fuel, to keep in mind that look at it also as a cooking gas. And I'll tell you why. I visited Singrauli, 3000 megawatt, whatever it is. NTPC was collaborating, had an MOU with Swiss agency where I was working, and they wanted to put up this decentralized 7 kilowatt plants, 10 kilowatt plants, because the villages around the Singrauli mega plant were dark. And I think they had a mandate to, do something about those villages. What I realized while working there was running a centralized system and running a decentralized system are completely different ball games. The rules of the game are very different. So a few days ago, I started thinking that what would be a better way to communicate what is involved in decentralized system. What is involved in decentralized system is a communitarian approach. Unless the community is with you, it doesn't work. And right now, when I look at that community, last 10 years I've been doing some work, I've been associated in Orissa with an organization. So when I visit rural areas, I find two things. The youth today absolutely wants mobility. Absolutely. I mean, it increases their social prestige, the social mobility, their access to all kinds of urban services. The rural is not as rural as, when we were growing up. So I like to call the whole area rural. So when you start looking at it, I said, yeah, those motorcycles, it would be lovely to have them on Bio-CNG because you don't see so many four-wheelers. Or you would love to see them on electric vehicles. So we are at a stage where we are designing future systems. And we have a great opportunity, not just to pilot technology, but to pilot systems and not to repeat the mistakes that we've done before. So a more inclusive, more communitarian approach and more multi-user, multiple ways of using the same energy resource, be it for cooking, be it for power generation, be it for mobility. And people in rural areas are ready. They really are ready, and they would love to have economic generation opportunities closer home than to come to large cities. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Veena-ji. And one point that you really have to mobilize people and for various activities, then only you can succeed. So, and taking us back 20, 30 years when we started with the biogas plants, and I do remember that kind of challenges we faced. We also had set up in hostels and different places, and we had varied experience. And in a way, I'll say that TERI continued with that research. We started looking at microbes for various kinds of waste, various temperatures, various designs. So it's a long journey, and I'm glad that government has recognized and the due importance has been given in the budget. So that is something really great. Now, one of the problems, like for any technology, is the efficiency of technology. Because ultimately, what you want is that the system should be reliable, it should give me maximum production and so on. And that's where the role of research and innovation, always remains, and nothing is perfect. The technology of yesterday is not going to work today, and today's technology will not work tomorrow. So we continuously keep on evolving. So I'll come to Professor Pratham Arora. He's from IIT Roorkee, with one of the premium research centers. Now, it goes, and we have started our discussion with that it's extremely important that biogas or compressed natural gas biogas that becomes one of the important vehicular fuel, and largely to mitigate or GHG emission problem. Now, what do you think? What are the kind of innovations that are going on in terms of gas conversion that can lead to increased productivity? And do you think it's going to be actual global climate game changer for mitigation, as it benefits goes beyond CO2, avoidance of methane emission and so on? So your views on this.
Dr. Dhawan, DG TERI, the esteemed panelists, the esteemed audience. So thanks for inviting me to this discussion that is very close to my heart. At IIT Roorkee, on the sustainability of different biogenic routes for fuel production for quite some time, and Bio-CNG is one of the major routes. So coming towards like, of course, if Bio-CNG is such a panacea, like what is stopping it from coming in? I remember when I was doing my bachelor's year 2007, I was working with Professor V.K. Vijay in IIT Delhi, 2007, and he was at that time running his yes, CRTT. Yeah, at that time he was running his modified Wagoner on Bio-CNG, so called. That was year 2007, so maybe 20 years back or so. Yeah, yeah, and he was running it till maybe a couple of years back. I talked to him. So that was running fine. So technology is nothing new. That technology was well known, and we have been running CNG vehicles all together. A major issue that was stopping it is the supply chain of biomass. Of course, you need the quantum of gas. That also needs a quantum of biomass. Where are you going to get the biomass from? And that is one thing that not many people in India talk about. Of course, we have huge amount of biomass. There's no doubt it. The hydrogen people are talking about biomass, and the other people are talking about biomass. But what's stopping it? Like the supply chain. The biomass is available, it's spread out. And that is what like we at IIT Roorkee also trying to make supply chain models for biomass transportation, storage, utilization, because biomass needs to be transported, and that again has its own emission. And I believe this, the team has taken good care of that. I was seeing the results, and that is indeed credible. And so we need to see that the biomass is available year around. And when I'm talking about biomass, it's not just the farm waste or the cow dung. Again, I must congratulate the team at TERI for taking into account the wastewater treatment plants. Now that can be again a great chunk of CNG producer or like bio-CBG producers. Because in India, maximum amount of waste treatment is happening through SBI route. Simple, efficient technology, but doesn't produce any energy. As such, we are giving a lot of energy for treating our wastewater. If we are using for a technology like USB or similar technologies, not only we produce biogas, it can be converted to Bio-CNG. It can also have or play a major role in making the whole wastewater treatment thing energy positive. Further, I would like to extend this discussion. Of course, wastewater treatment plant everyone is talking about. Recently, we also have a plant coming in Salegaon, Goa, where they're producing good amount of biogas from municipal solid waste. You see these hills around the border of Delhi, like Ghazipur, Azadpur, burning. This is nothing but methane coming out of it. You can capture that landfill gas, make biogas, make Bio-CNG, run the vehicles. So that is another low-hanging fruit. Further, of course, India is a country of cows. We have Maharaji sitting here, and like I believe he'll be talking more about it. And we have been like helping one of the major goshalas in India in the district of Haridwar. So that has around 5,000 cows. Of course, abandoned cows, because if they're milking cattle, no one would want to abandon them. And so majority of the goshalas, again, are running on donations. We don't want that to happen. If we can have a plant like CBGs, possibly it can help create wealth for these goshalas where it could be independently run or more effectively run. That being said, and of course, like I remember a few years back, I was invited to give us a talk on a similar topic for the SAARC nation. So it was a SAARC energy center holding a similar kind of meeting where I was giving a talk on Bio-CNG, the sustainability aspects. And I looked at the literature. I couldn't come across a single study that did life cycle assessment and social assessment for Bio-CNG or something similar. I had to adopt studies from Nepal and Bangladesh to make up my case. So again, I congratulate Mr. Souvik for taking up the study so that we have something inherent for India, which the data we can show. Now coming to the emission results. Now in the past, we have seen a lot of reports coming in. Some reports say IC engines are better, some say EVs are better. And I would not say one is better, one is right, one is wrong, based upon the assumptions and the system boundary that you take. But one thing I would like to say, because the Bio-CNG, when we produce it, we are avoiding methane. We are avoiding 28 times the emissions as compared to CO2. And we might produce some CO2 in the engine. So when we are running your engines on Bio-CNG, the CO2 is nonetheless going to come out, but it's going to be way less than the methane emissions that are going to inevitably occur. So the emissions are going to be negative. The quantum could depend on your assumptions. That's not the potential in EVs. That's not the potential in CNG. That's not the potential in petrol or diesel vehicles. That's only for the biogenic routes. And again, I would also like to mention that now India has a net zero target of 2070. Different countries have their targets. Now, why are we talking about net zero? Why not zero? Because there are going to be energy production from coal, oil, natural gas. What we want is net zero. We need certain technologies which are going to make up for the extra emission that we are making from fossil fuels. And again, this is where the biomass comes in. We can create a net zero from it. Further, another point I would like to make is now everyone is talking about hydrogen, hydrogen valleys, and all those things. Let's not forget how the hydrogen is coming from. Majority of the hydrogen in India is coming from steam methane reforming, grey hydrogen. What is the feedstock? Natural gas. Where the natural gas is coming from? Either import or through these gases. Can we change the whole supply chain? This is a route. Then again, where is this hydrogen getting used? Majority of it gets used in ammonia production. Where does ammonia go? Fertilizers. Now, when we are using a route like this, you are producing a digestate, which is a very good fertilizer manure. Now, there are government restrictions or the government subsidies are not going to be, that's why it might not be cheaper as of now. But in the future, again, it might happen that a biogas plant might make much more income from the digestate turning into bioprom or other kinds of fertilizer like humic acid than the other. Further, my friend here said, Dr. Joshi said, why not we go for kitchen fuel? I would like to take the discussion to other. Apart from the vehicular fuel, why should we not look towards industries which have a huge demand for CNG for their energy needs? The Goshala in Haridwar that we're working for supplies the Bio-CNG to a pharmaceutical industry for the heating purposes. They're making good amount of profit from that. So that could be another dimension. The methane that we are producing can now be, the research is going on for converting that methane into hydrogen by pyrolysis, methane pyrolysis, that gives you hydrogen. So in case you are having a hydrogen-based supply chain in the future, this can be a good route. So with that, I would just like to end with a thought process that now more and more institutes like us are coming up with energy engineering. We are also planning to start an energy engineering course from the coming semester, where we plan to train manpower in the different aspects of energy, because that is an amalgamation of chemical, mechanical, electrical. And this kind of manpower is needed, and this is what we are also trying to play a role for such centralized plants, which might be a game changer in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Arora, throwing light on what is happening, especially on the research side. And it's very heartening to know that you're already working with Goshala, because ultimately, whatever research you do, it must reach the end user. And that's where you come to know about the teething problems, because when technology at small scale cannot be just converted into large scale, cannot be translated. So that's great. So while we have discussed about the technology, potential, and so on, I'd like to invite Shri Mahant Ram Mangal Das ji. He comes from Radha Krishnan Mandir Goshala. In fact, few days back, हम लोग की मुलाकात हुई थी LG के घर में, और फिर हमने बात करी थी कि इनकी इतनी बड़ी गौशाला है. मैं अभी तक गई नहीं हूँ इनकी गौशाला में, लेकिन ये जान के मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा था कि वो इमीडिएटली चाहते हैं या करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो हमारी गौशाला है उससे जो अब हम गौधन बोलते हैं उसको हम कैसे मैक्सिमाइज यूज में लेके आए. तो मैं इसमें ज़्यादा नहीं बोलूँगी, मैं महाराज जी को ही बोलूँगी कि वो आपको अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस बताएं, तो उससे हम सबका कॉन्फिडेंस भी बढ़ेगा इस टेक्नोलॉजी की तरफ.
सभी देश के विदेश के स्वास्थ्य के चिंतन में बैठे हुए हैं सभी लोगों का नमस्कार. हमारे पास लगभग वर्तमान में 4000 गाय हैं. उन गायों के बीच में मध्य में 24 घंटा रहता हूँ, और अपने आश्रम में 1.25 लाख तुलसी जी लगा रखे हैं और लगभग 1100 पीपल के पेड़, उनके मध्य में 24 घंटा रहता हूँ. आज तक कोई भी स्वास्थ्य के लिए मैंने अंग्रेजी दवा नहीं खाई, और जितने भी हमारे गोचर हैं वो सभी स्वस्थ रहते हैं. जैसे ये रोग आया था, कौन सा कोरोना, इस रोग में हमारे यहाँ गौसेवक और आसपास के कोई भी व्यक्ति बीमार नहीं हुआ. तो वास्तविक में गौ माता आपको स्वास्थ्य देती है. और जैसे जैसे व्यक्ति अपने पास सभी भारतीय देसी गाय हैं, कोई भी जर्सी गाय नहीं है. जो जर्सी गाय स्वास्थ्य को खराब करती है उसका हम दूध ग्रहण करते हैं। तो A2B2 जो दूध का परीक्षण चल रहा है, ये चल रहा है। तो सभी प्रकार से गौ माता स्वास्थ्य देती है और जितनी भी जो हमारे यहाँ बड़े बड़े सींग की गाय होती है वो गाय कभी भी बीमार नहीं होती है, सदैव स्वस्थ रहती है और स्वस्थ रखती है। ये सब का हमको अनुभव है। तो आप सब कभी भी अपनी गौ माता के मध्य में आएँ और वहाँ का पर्यावरण देखें, स्वास्थ्य देखें। हमारी पूरी गौशाला जंगल में है, 2 किलोमीटर तक कोई नगर बस्ती नहीं है। और विशेष हम ना जानते हुए हमारे स्वामी जी आपको कुछ शब्दों में बात समझाएंगे।
सबसे पहले तो मैं सभी को आमंत्रित करता हूँ कृष्ण सुदामा गौशाला में। आज जो बात चल रही है कि हम बायो-CNG के ऊपर, देखिए बायो-CNG अभी आप लोग इस पे जो भी रिसर्च कर रहे हैं, मगर बायोगैस आज से करीब 30 साल से जब से करीब वहाँ से कार्य हो रहे थे, तो उसमें काफ़ी डेवलप किया इंडिया में, साइंटिस्ट ने भी काफ़ी वो हुआ। महाराज जी हमारे गौ सेवक हैं पिछले 40 साल से, तो इनको गौओं के बारे में काफ़ी पता है। और ऐसे काफ़ी गौ सेवक हैं जिनको ये नहीं पता कि हम उस गौ के गोबर से या उससे हम क्या कर सकते हैं। तो जैसे गौ कास्ट है, अब जैसे CNG, अभी बायो-CNG का आप ये उसमें काफ़ी जो सब्जी मंडी से वो निकलता है कूड़ा करकट, उससे भी। तो मैं इसके बारे में थोड़ी जानकारी रखता हूँ कि इससे मीथेन जो पैदा होती है उसके मार्फत 52,000 कुछ क्यूबिक मीटर्स का आपका वो जो पैरामीटर है। बात आती है कि हम आगे, ठीक है, गऊ अपना दूध से या गऊ की सेवा करने से क्या फल मिल रहा है, मगर उसके जो वेस्ट से हम क्या कर सकते हैं। तो हमें बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है कि आप लोग हमें भी इस और अग्रसर हैं। और मैं सभी गौरक्षक, जितने भी गौ सेवा करने वाले, जितने भी हमारे साधु संत समाज के लोग हैं, उनके सामने भी ये बात ज़रूर रखूँगा कि आप लोग को ध्यान से सुने, आप लोग उनके यहाँ पे जाकर काफ़ी कुछ उनको सिखाएं, क्योंकि वो वक्त आ चुका है कि आज ये जो चैम्बर बन चुके हैं हमारे जो मेट्रो सिटीज़ हैं, जो पर्यावरण को लेकर जो यहाँ पे जीना बड़ा दुर्भर हो जाता है। जैसे महाराज जी ने कहा कि 1.25 लाख तुलसी, तो उनका लगाने का रीजन ये नहीं है कि हमें कोई वन बनाना है, हमारा ये था कि वहाँ का जो वातावरण है वो अच्छा रहे, वहाँ का AQI सिस्टम अच्छा रहे। बात यही है कि दूसरा कि ये हमारे देश में तमाम जो है ऐसी बहुत सारी बड़ी बड़ी गौशालाएं हैं, और हो सकता है कि आप लोग काफ़ी हद तक कहीं पर जा भी रहे होंगे। और हम दिल्ली प्रदेश की तरफ से, और मैं अखिल भारतीय संघ समिति में राष्ट्रीय सह प्रमुख हूँ और महाराज जी का शिष्य हूँ। इसके तरफ से मैं जो भी आपके लिए कुछ भी सेवा कर पाऊँ, कुछ भी मुझे आप बिल्कुल बता सकते हैं कि किसी गौशाले में जाना है या किसी से कोई भी किस प्रकार का वेस्टेज चाहिए, किसी को वहाँ पे हमारी तरफ से आपको वहाँ पे जगह भी हम दे देंगे। 17 तारीख को एक प्रोग्राम अभी आपको नॉलेज होगा, 17 तारीख को नारायण राणे मंत्री जी जो MSME, तो उसमें भी प्रोग्राम है, उसमें भी महाराज जी का, क्योंकि दिस इज़ द लीडिंग गौशाला इन NCR। क्योंकि यहाँ पे यहाँ पे मेट्रो सिटीज़ में, देखिए मैं एक बात और हटके कहना चाहता हूँ कि मेट्रो सिटी में जहाँ पर रहना और खाना दुश्वार है, एक संस्कृति को बचाकर महाराज जी ने रखा है। जहाँ पे रोटियाँ गिन के बनती हैं कि आज कितनी रोटी खाना है, महाराज जी आज उस एरिया में गौशाला देखिए दान से चलती है, मगर चैरिटी करने वाले आप ही लोग हैं। मगर क्यों ना आप लोग उसमें बेहतर से बेहतर हमें कुछ ना कुछ उसमें बता पाएँ कि हम इससे क्या कर सकते हैं। तो हम आपको स्वागत करते हैं कि आप वहाँ पे आएँ, और अब हमसे जो भी आप हमसे जो भी मदद चाहिए, जो भी हमारे से चाहिए, तो तहे दिल से बहुत बहुत सभी का धन्यवाद, क्योंकि एजुकेशन का थोड़ा सा अभाव है और थोड़ा सा
आपका
तो
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। इनफैक्ट हमारा मकसद ये था कि हम सब लोग को बता पाएँ कि जहाँ गौशाला, बड़ी बड़ी गौशाला हैं, वहाँ पर भी वो नई टेक्नोलॉजी चाह रहे हैं, और चाह रहे हैं कि जिस तरह से हम बेहतर यूज कर सकें, तो वो बहुत बड़ी बात है। सो नाउ व्हाट आई लाइक,
थैंक यू मैम। महाराज जी, आपको बताना चाहूँगा, मुजफ्फरनगर जो यहाँ से काफ़ी नज़दीक है, वहाँ एक काऊ सेंचुरी बन रही है 5,000 गाय के लिए। वहाँ पे हम एक बायो-CNG प्लांट लगा रहे हैं। तो मैं भी आपको आमंत्रित करता हूँ, आप वहाँ आके देखिए और फिर हमारे से बात करिए। आपकी गौशाला में भी लगाना है तो हम आपके साथ काम करेंगे।
excellent. So although we are running short of time, but I'll still like to open it for few questions, because that will be unfair otherwise. So any burning question? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take max 4 how many panelists are there? 1, 2, 5. So we'll take 5 questions and we'll answer them together. So let's go. Yeah, I will go with you first.
How much energy content of the biomass or powder is being converted into biogas? And other option, whether it will be beneficial to use the biomass directly as co-firing, and how much benefit then we will get, because emission will be reduced in the same.
Okay, maybe it's specific to you, so you can take it. Yeah. Okay,
thanks. Okay. Thanks for the question. That's a really interesting question, and I appreciate you for that. So, of course, like there are standard equations, like how many liters of gas you that's on the volatile solids, depending on the biomass that you had. So that's a standard number. So roughly that is 250 meter cube per, I don't exactly remember, but that number is still known. The more pertinent is like the second question, like which will be beneficial for the biomass, taking it for co-firing or for biogas. Now, co-firing plants, see the coal plants are all near the coal mines. Now, the biomass that you have is spread throughout the country. Now, one thing is there's extensive transportation. You need to pelletize, briquette, or maybe torrefy the biomass. That has its own cost. We are working on that, but as of now, like it is costly. Like the pellet cost, like the government announced for 10 rupees kg, no one was able to supply that. Now they're increasing the price, so the pricing is still an issue. Whereas this technology for biogas, you can have decentralized plants or centralized, but even the centralized plant could be maybe 10 kilometers, 50 kilometers, not more than that. Further, it will also depend on the type of biomass. Now, if there's a wet biomass which is high in moisture, possibly biogas is the best way to go, because you're anyway mixing it with water. If you have a dry biomass like straw or something, you need some kind of treatment that again has some kind of lignin removal for biogas, and of course you would have to work the economics, but I would still go with biogas because the production as well as the use could be decentralized. Whereas for the coal plants, you would have to, there are efficiency losses in the plant as well. You have to transport all the way to the coal plants, which might not be very near. Does that answer your question?
Like natural gas, if you see the calorific value is around 9,000 net calorific value, around 9,000 kilocalorie per standard cubic meter. And if you correlate with kg part, that is CNG, to 1 kg is equivalent to 1.3 standard cubic meter. But as far as biomass is concerned, so that would be around, I think, 2,000 or something like that kilocalorie. That is very less. That is why it has to be refined and brought to the most purified level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other question? Yeah.
Thank you to all. I think it is a really great report. But I have a small question for ma'am only. Mobility connecting with Bio-CNG. Today we saw this report says that, Bio-CNG is giving the best carbon benefits to the country. But when we see the mobility for future, these are being defined by regulations like emission regulations and CAFE, CO2, carbon neutrality and all that. How the crux or the output of this report can go to such regulations, because people are today finding out more, lucrative things for EVs, other things. And this is kind of outshadowed. Unless the future regulations which are coming gets this report as an input and tries to make mobility roadmap for future in terms of that, then only, the mobility and Bio-CNG can be connected. So how will, how can we support that? Or, what are your views on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and there are different steps for popularizing any technology for that matter. Because regulations can only come to force if there is adequate supply for Bio-CNG or CNG as a whole. And it is also because it's very difficult to predict the future. It will definitely, we are looking it as a potential technology for mobility, But in years to come, we are also working on number of other technologies. Like, who knows, in years to come, hydrogen will become more popular, especially for heavy vehicles. We are talking of electric vehicles today, but then that electricity has to be green. So how we move in the sphere of solar energy. And similarly, over Bio-CNG also, it is that regulations will come, because even today, if you look at the scraping policy or whenever the ban come in the city of Delhi, it is not for CNG vehicles. So indirect benefits or indirect, the government is promoting CNG. So without putting any regulation in place, indirectly they are. And they will come once there is adequate supply, according to me. Of course, our duty, TERI's responsibility, is also to reach to the right policy makers, sensitize them about the benefits, and then move forward. I'll come to you. You had raised your hand first. Yeah, Mr.
With your permission, I just want to add to what you said. If I understood Mr. Ajay's question, I think right now the CAFE norms are based on tank to wheel efficiency. If you have to take advantage of this particular condition, we have to go backwards to well to wheel type of carbon footprint, when these advantages of biogas will come into picture. Similarly for other fuels also. Absolutely. I think that change has to happen at the legislation making place.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
This is Vinayak from Bangalore. Pleased to be part of this very learned jury. Am I audible? Yeah, obviously, it is to Mr. Toyofuku. There is a power derating when you use a gaseous fuel and NOx emissions also. Is there any increase in NOx emission or power derating? Of course, carbon emissions are reduced. And what about local NOx emission? Globally, it may be neutral, but locally the NOx emission will increase. How do you handle this? Is there any modification required to the engine? That is one part. And another one is, as we have to purify the gas, will it be more, more energy intense as the energy it produces? That is my concern. If it is not meant, then it is okay. Or otherwise, as sir told, cradle to grave analysis is required. When we do go for a cradle to grave analysis, if it results in more energy intense activity, ultimately at some part it is reducing and other part it is increasing. That also we have to consider what I think.
Yes, thank you very much. The very important question. And the first question is NOx, I think. I think that I'm not the expert of NOx. I think the later on that, I think the ground, many expert is there. Later he will answer. And regarding the second question, it is regarding the purification. So of course, now several purification method is available. Now how to identify the best purification method is very important. We should consider the cost, and we should consider the energy consumption. But now I think that many big companies and the small companies is contributing to providing the high efficiency purification process. So that's why now we are expecting that many technology companies should contribute to reduce the energy emission from the purification process. And the first question, I think the Ajay-san is the right person to.
We'll discuss later. We'll discuss.
So last question.
Thank you.
So, thank you, ma'am. This is some input in this case, because if purification cost has to come down, methane percent has to be high in the production itself. And that's the very important part, because we are working with a lot of biogas plants, and the ground realities is that we are not getting the quality of methane. And that's where we as a biotechnologist, I'm founder of a company, and what we have come up with a service kind of thing that we look after to the microbial health, which is not there, and we are neglecting that part while doing the whole mechanical part of Bio-CNG, and that should be in consideration. And that's what we wanted to understand, that how innovations like this can be supported to really make the Bio-CNG sector a success in India. We could able to revive around 15 to 16 plant till now. Both which are having no Bio-CNG production at all because they turned acidic. We could able to revive within a week's time with the innovative product which has been supported by BioRac. So those are kind of innovation which is really required, as sir mentioned. Cost of purification has to come down if we really want our carbon emissions to go down. And biotechnology, ma'am already know, biotechnology interventions are very, very important in this sector. Thank you, ma'am.
That I agree with you because each area location is different, each biomass is different. So therefore the biotechnological interventions are going to play an important role. But it's not just biotech, it's also the design. How do you conserve energy? So we really have to do lots in research also so that we have good commercial biogas plants in place. So thank you very much for the great panel. Okay, I'll take your last question.
Thank you, TERI, for bringing such a beautiful report, a lot of insight about the feedstock, a lot of feeds about the emission. Only one request to TERI. There is a green credit policy. I am not talking about carbon credit policy. I am talking about green credit policy. There are 8 sectors defined in that. And it is always a request to TERI to look forward for a public policy advocacy to bring Bio-CNG sector into a green credit policy. It is a very big gap and it will change the whole spectrum of the industry.
Yeah. No, one is actually looking at the green credit policy, and TERI, we do have our colleagues sitting in that advisory, and we are discussing about it, and it's not just for Bio-CNG. There are a number of other technologies like nano fertilizer and so on, because ultimately somewhere I also have to see what is there for me. So yes, I am concerned about the environment, but not at the cost that sometimes, like petrol, I will not get CNG station that close. So there should be some additional benefit coming to me, and that is well taken, and we are conscious of this. Thank you so much. So with this, I'd like to bring it to close. Thank you for your inputs, and I should say for me, it was a great learning from everyone. And I do see, and let me tell you, it is not just in India, it's overseas as well. The other day I was reading news from San Francisco, and that was again talking about that the poo of cow, it's a gold, and how they are intending to get into biogas production. So it's a global thing, everyone is becoming conscious, but the need is more in our country. So thank you, enjoy your lunch and rest of the sessions. No, you are absolutely right, and let me tell you, it has so much of potential, and everyone is open towards it. And in fact, couple of years back, I had gone to Tawang, and of course it's a hilly state and still developing in a way. The Arunachal Pradesh, beautiful state, temperatures, they go very low, and while you are traveling, you will find truckloads of wood because they save wood for cooking in the winter seasons. And they have the largest monastery, one of the oldest monastery in Tawang, and when I went and discussed with the priest over there, and I asked him one question, and they have 600 monks staying any given time. So excreta of 600, and I said, do you mind if we give you a biogas plant? Will you be willing? And he said, surely. And I said, once prasad is made with that, reluctance of people towards using biogas perhaps will disappear. And they were very open, but unfortunately I couldn't find money to help them with setting up of that biogas plant. Absolutely, absolutely. See, especially when you look at the hilly terrain where temperatures are low, it takes very long time for the waste to degrade. And look at your hills, you will find dump of waste material lying over there. So if you can find a solution of this kind, it's a win-win. Perfect, very good. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Dhawan, for moderating the session and to our distinguished guests for their perspective. Now I request Dr. Dhawan to please felicitate our delegates.
Esteemed delegates and respected participants, a heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for gracing this thematic track with your presence and making it a success. We are profoundly honored for the esteemed presence of all the distinguished speakers that we have on our panel. Your unwavering commitment towards sustainable mobility and your insights have enriched this session a lot. Thank you so much to Ivy Rao sir, Distinguished Fellow, TERI, and Shavik Bhattacharya, Associate Director, TERI, for their continuous support. Thank you so much.